All right, I had a little chance to dry. What what I want to do is I add a little bit more yellow here. You see, it's a little more intense, but a couple of things. I want to push that shadow a little farther over in this direction. There's still a little bit of space there that could be filled in, and then I want to apply another layer of that reddish brown over more of this part here so that it brings out the light in the front. Now, it's been about 20 minutes since we stopped working on this, and this is still not dry, that core, because it's sitting on the surface. I wanted that dark to really get more intense. So because when you start getting more than one layer on, your watercolor is slower and it's soaking into the paper, so it's going to require a little more time. So what I want to do first here, I'm going to start with the shadow, is I'm going to add a little water right in here. And I'm also going to moisten this up too. Okay, I'm just going to freshen this up some. And I'm going to get closer to finishing this off by working a little more of that browner red over that part of the shadow. But first, let me go ahead and take a little of this. I'm just going to go ahead and mix a little blue with a little red. Alright, I'm going to mix my primaries together since that's what I use to mix that color in the shadow anyway. And let me steal a little yellow as well. Mix all of these together. And I'm going to come back here and just kind of brush it in. You see, you have a tendency to think that it's going to be a rather drastic mixture, but you can barely see it. I'm going to grab a little more and come back in here. Add some more. And make it seem like it fades into the distance. I'm going to take a little of the red, bring out a little more in here. Let's go ahead and let it run off on this side, like so. And distinguish a little extra right along the edge of that peach to lift it up off the table there by making that edge of the shadow just a tad more intense in darkness. I picked up a little of that reddish brown just to darken and just pull it back into that moisture of the paper, and then a nice fluid quality to it. All right, I'll hit that area again in a little while. Now let's go ahead and put a little more of that reddish brown over the darker part of the apple, or excuse me, of the peach. Okay. Let me start here, and then just kind of go over from this as the starting point. Here. Now, even with this tape, like I said, the watercolor paper is very thick, and so when it gets wet, it's going to want to shrink and shrivel. And so even with the tape, it's buckling a little, but it will flatten out. But you're going to get some ridges in your paper that You're gonna have to make it become a little bit more careful when you're painting, to be aware of that, so that you can respect that occasional hill that you run across until it flattens out as it dries over time. Okay. Pull up a little more. I'm going to grab a little more of the umber or the sienna, a little of the red, a little water. I'm going to go back to where I started, over on this side, and lay in some more. It's got a little bit more of the sienna in it. Remember, sienna is the reddish brown. Okay. Comes a little closer to the core, except I don't like that hard patch. I'm going to roughen it up. See that with my sponge, so it doesn't look so severe. Turn this around. A little of that brown and red in through here. And over in this area. Climbs up this little ridge. Reddish brown shows right in there. Textured ending. And the same in here. A little bit of this. And a little texture over the top. There we go. Okay. This back end, I'm going to sharpen it with a little extra distinction with the reddish brown. All right. Okay, let's let that dry. All right. Well, it's looking good, looking good. Now, I just noticed a couple of specks on my paper. Don't know where they came from, but it's a little annoying. But what I wanted to tell you, if that happens, it's just a matter of being careless on my part here. But the watercolor paper being as thick as it is, usually I'm talking about right here, right there. This is a fleck that can come off. But then I can take a razor blade and just lightly scrape that off. It should come off, and that way the paper will be really clean again and not have any trace of that speckledness out in there. But the shadow is looking much better. I'm going to use a little blue on this dirty brush that has that reddish brown on it, and I'm going to work a little of it and right in here where the shadow would be darkest, right where it makes contact with the peach. Okay, now to end it, I'm just going to use my sponge and just kind of blend it out. There we go. And now my shadow has a little more dramatic presence in the design, because there's not much going on in the background. So it really helps to have something of interest happening that also serves to keep the peach from looking like just floating in air. So now it's got a table surface that it's sitting on, and now you can feel a little bit better about the composition. Now I'm going to take my my sponge, and I'm just going to sponge around some of these little dark specks here, just so that they don't seem too numerous, and kind of quiet some of them down. A large gathering of pools of darker brown. See that? I took some of them off. There we go. So now it doesn't seem like they're overbearing in the design. There we go. Okay. All right. I'm feeling pretty good about the way this looks. I think I'm going to let it dry, and we'll take a look at it before you start your next project, which will be the still life. Which will be the landscape. So we're going to do 2 still life projects, and then we'll do a landscape, and then we'll do a figure or portrait, and then you'll have the call on the subject for the very last project, the 5th one. So remember, you're going to need to do more than one painting of this. For instance, I would probably want to do another one of these on my own, and before I decide which one would be better to turn in. So don't just be content with one and then move on, but let's go ahead and be more considerate as to getting more practice in with another one, and then deciding which is going to be the one that gets turned in. Okay? All right. See you in the next demonstration.